Hey guys, just like many of you out there watching today, there was a point in time, even for myself, where I was nervous or scared to purchase anything that contained a floral ingredient just because I didn't know if I had the confidence to pull it off. Also, I thought that maybe it would be a little bit too feminine. In today's video, I have 8 examples of fragrances that contain floral ingredients but don't necessarily lean feminine or smell overly floral. The whole point of this video is so you don't make the same mistakes that I did and assume just because there's a floral ingredient within a fragrance that it can lean feminine or give off too much of a floral vibe and remind you of maybe an old lady or some potpourri. Stay tuned, especially if this sounds of interest to you, and maybe I could provide you with some assistance. Before we even get started with fragrances and lists and all sorts of stuff like that, I do have to tell you guys, by no means, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in this. All I'm doing is just trying to offer some advice, help you, and also, like I said in the intro, not make the same mistakes that I made. Just because fragrances contain floral ingredients does not mean that they are floral. I wanted to start this list off, if you will, with 2 fragrances that are extremely popular amongst men for good reason, but that also contain floral ingredients. But maybe some can make the argument that these were florals that were done to perfection and done right. The first one, you already saw the bottle, John Varvatos Artisan Pure. So Artisan Pure, we know, is this clean, fresh linen type of smell that comes from white florals, but also has a peppery spice type of quality within the fragrance, also some citrus components as well, to take the edge off of those white florals. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole idea behind this video, is to showcase some fragrances that were composed using these floral ingredients without having them smell overly floral. So you'll find that within the top notes and within the base notes, these notes are there and balanced and blended with the floral ingredients to take that floral edge and that vibe away and not focus so much on that. So to the untrained nose, that's what you are going to pick up. You're just going to pick up this clean, fresh linen type of smell that is very mass appealing and very crowd pleasing and very, very easy to wear. So the next fragrance that I'd like to showcase and talk to you about is Prada Lum. So Prada Lum is, many men would say and argue, and women too, would say that this was the best or is the best office fragrance that was ever composed and created. So in here you have very citrus-like components, top notes there, but really the heart of the fragrance and the focus of this fragrance is iris. Now you do have a little bit of wood, some musks there in the base, but to me, they're really non-existent. To me, it's all about that powder vibe that this gives off, that iris, that powdery vibe. Now, iris, along with many other notes that we're going to discuss today, can go in so many different directions, depending on which part of the plant or the flower that you're using. But like I said, I'm not an expert, so we're not going to go into super deep detail about that. But in here, we have the powdery variant of iris. So now that we've got 2 obvious choices out of the way, I want to kick things off in what I consider to be the most masculine genre of fragrances there is, and that would be the fougere genre. So I would like to start this list off with Sartorio from Penhaligon. So this is a classic barbershop fougere, but in here, and in most fougeres, they are centered around the note of lavender. And what brings these compositions together is what kickstarts the fragrance, or the top notes, which in this, you have a bunch of citruses. You also have a metallic note, some watery notes. And then on the base, you have some deep woodsy elements. You also have things like myrrh in here. You have oak moss. So that kind of give off this earthy green type of feel, which is also pretty common for fougere style fragrances. But again, this is centered around the note of lavender. However, the way that it's blended and composed with those other ingredients, just like the other fragrances that we're going to talk about and the fragrances that I spoke about before this, by no means at all does this lean feminine. It's a very aromatic barbershop style with fougere with herbaceous and woodsy like nuances and tendencies. Great fougere. If you're looking for a great fougere, look no further than Penhaligon Sartorio. So neroli is going to come up quite a bit here in this video. This fragrance house that I want to talk about, this comes from their Man collection. It's called Wood Neroli. Of course, we're talking about the House of Bulgari. So within the composition, you have neroli, obviously. You also have bergamot, orange blossom woods, cypriol oil, which cypriol oil typically gives off this like herbaceous type of quality. Oh man, and here, you know, this combination of neroli and orange blossom, sometimes it could go bitter. There's so many different variants and variations and, you know, notes and things like that that can accompany a neroli or an orange blossom and have it give off different nuances and tendencies. So in here, because of that, those woods and because of that cypriol oil and the neroli, the bergamot in the opening, this does not have a floral feel whatsoever. Those notes, in my opinion, the neroli definitely is front and center, but it's a green type of neroli, which also has a sweet undertone to it. Something definitely sweet about this fragrance. But again, this is another one of those fragrances that does have floral ingredients, but does not smell floral. And if it does, it's a slight floral hint that you get, but by no means would I consider this overly feminine. Now, it's part of their Man collection. However, I could definitely see women liking this enough to actually wearing it and pulling it off. I don't think this leans overly masculine. I also don't think it leans feminine. To me, this is a unisex offering marketed towards men. The next fragrance that I would like to discuss contains some floral notes in here, but for the most part, we get this beautiful, crisp, fresh note of mint. Of course, this comes from the house of État Libre d'Orange. This one is called You or Someone Like You. Man, I love this stuff. It's so good. But anyway, yeah, photorealistic mint accompanied by some grapefruits and bergamot. We also have a slightly detectable note of anise in here. Some green notes that it's a very fresh green note accord in here. You know, reminds me of fresh grass, or also maybe a little bit of stems like from flowers. That's the kind of green vibe that I'm getting, of course, to my nose, so my opinion. But we also have rose in here. We have hedione also giving it a fresh floral feel. So ultimately what you're left with here is a fragrance that smells extremely fresh. That's the main thing that I get here. Fresh, green, you know, because of that mint and that green notes accord in here. But ultimately, it just smells fresh. It smells clean and green, of course. A great option if you guys are looking for a fresh fragrance from a niche house that is not complicated to wear. Check out État Libre d'Orange. You or Someone Like You. This stuff is just fantastic. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, as I always am, but, you know, always have to stress that for some reason. So this one comes from the house of Nishane. This is called Ambra Calabria. The reason why I say this one is a little bit more challenging is because the floral notes that are in here are a little bit more detectable than anything else that I have here on this list, at least to my nose it is. So within the composition, you have bergamot, you have galbanum, you also have jasmine. So the galbanum in here is going to give the fragrance a green, you know, kind of vibe. You also have sweet amber, you have vanilla, you have musk on the dry down of the fragrance. It's just so fresh. It's so green in that opening, in the mid. There's a little bit of a floral vibe here, but it's not overly prominent, those floral ingredients here. And then there's some calming, soothing elements here on the base, like that sweet amber and that vanilla adds a nice calming effect to the fragrance. This stuff is absolutely incredible. I love it, but then again, I'm not afraid of florals, you know? But it's such a great fragrance, so well balanced, blended, and composed that to me, This doesn't lean feminine or masculine. However, this is going to be a bit of a challenge for people that may think that this leans, but for people that want to stay away from florals, this can be a bit challenging to you if you're just not a fan of floral fragrances. So again, my recommendation here is to sample this, try it for yourself, then make that determination if it's for you or not, before you invest $100 or $200 in a bottle of juice like this. Did you guys notice that all of the fragrances that we discussed so far are fragrances that you could wear in the summertime? I mean, that's part of the reason why I did this video, was to include some fragrances that you can, or all of these fragrances really you could wear in the summertime. But anyway, just a side note in case you weren't paying attention. The next one comes from the designer house of Tom Ford. This is Mandarino di Amalfi, which for the designer list made my number one. I absolutely love and adore this fragrance. This was composed by Khalees Becker, which has done, I believe she's responsible for Tommy Girl. She did a bunch of fragrances for the house, or with rather, the house of Killian. But in this one, we have lemon, grapefruit. We have that mint basil combination here, which adds a slight herbaceous quality to it. We have orange blossom again in jasmine. So we also have, as by the color of the bottle you can imagine, you have this watery aquatic accord within the composition. At least that's what I'm detecting here. But again, the floral ingredients, the way that this is composed and blended, are just to add a little bit more complexity to the formulation here. To me, this doesn't lean masculine or feminine. Again, it does not lean overly floral. Can I detect the floral? Sure, I can. But in no way, shape, or form would I consider this a floral fragrance. I would consider this a citrus, aromatic, aquatic fragrance. If you're asking me, those floral notes and nuances that you are going to detect just help smooth and balance this composition out. And you can argue that point for every fragrance that we discussed so far. So the last fragrance that I would like to talk about, discuss, and highlight comes from the house of Le Labo, and this is Bergamot 22. So Bergamot 22 also features notes like vetiver, which is going to give this formulation this clean, soapy type of a feel there. You also have grapefruit, you have orange blossom, petitgrain, musk, cedar, vanilla, amber. So within this composition, yes, you obviously have this big, bright, effervescent, fizzy bergamot quality, but you also have that vetiver adding that clean soapiness, like I was saying. You have that grapefruit adding a nice citrus blast of the fragrance, along with the orange blossom rather. The petitgrain, again, I feel are just there, adding a little bit more depth, complexity to the fragrance. You have the musk, cedar, vanilla, all creating this woody, sweet facet, which becomes like a nuance that I pick up at least, or that you may also detect. But in no way, shape, or form do I ever see this going floral, feminine, or anything like that. This is a completely unisex fragrance that features notes of floral, but does not lean floral at all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was my list of fragrances that contain floral ingredients, but do not go into too much of a floral direction, and also don't lean overly feminine. If you did find this video helpful and insightful, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up. Even if you didn't, just lie and hit the thumbs up anyway, because that's going to help YouTube recognize that you guys like me, which will increase my visibility throughout this platform here. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That also will help me out. Comment below with some of your favorite fragrances, or some fragrances that you really enjoy that contain floral ingredients, or notes rather. Also, don't forget to click and enable that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Guys, I love you so much. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.